Welcome back to the 10-year anniversary of the 21 Convention in Orlando, Florida, 2017. I am particularly proud to announce the CEO and the executive chairman of the 21 Convention and 21 Studios, a very close personal friend who I'll be speaking about in a little bit as well as part of the keynote address for this convention. At this time, please give a warm welcome and applause to Anthony Dream Johnson.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the warm welcome. The title of my keynote address, as you can see, "The Future is Masculine." Throughout this talk, we're going to explore what exactly that means, and at the end, we'll revisit it. Remember the title, it's important. In my judgment, feminism is the ultimate hate and supremacist movement today. We're going to also explore this statement, as you might have guessed. Read this closely because I mean it. This is not it's not exaggerated. I'm doing it and saying it because I believe it's true. I also know it's going to trigger the shit out of people. But I'm also dead serious when I say this in writing and in speaking. Since I found the red pill through Nicholas Cloud, an attendee here, and last summer in 2016, I went on to give a presentation at the 21 Convention of Miami, Florida, called Building a Universe for the Ideal Man. It was a visionary talk for the future of this company. It's something I stand behind to this day. It's been about a year since I gave it. Since giving that talk, leading up to it, giving it, and then after the fact, I continued to explore the red pill, particularly the work of Rollo Tomasi, a speaker here at this event. One of the things I realized, had a sneaking suspicion of before it, and then after the fact realized more fully, is that vision was fundamentally incomplete. In finding the red pill and digging through the creation aspect of this purpose of this company, it led me to believe that it was fundamentally incomplete. However badass it was, and however much you guys benefit from that in your own personal lives by becoming a more powerful man that's more game aware, red pill aware, healthier, fit, wealthier, and all the above. So it was incomplete, as much as I enjoyed giving it. And so, before I continue, a major theme of this talk, as you can imagine, building a universe for the ideal man, is creation versus destruction, and how these two interact. Directly related to that, and as a follow-up, I've been thinking a lot about being pro-masculinity. I put specifically pro to not rip off Rollo Tomasi and positive masculinity, his whole initiative with that. For my purposes, it fits quite well. Versus being anti-feminism, challenging it, criticizing it in any way, shape, or form, what the mechanics of these two are, and how they interact. In thinking about it over weeks and months, I realized that they are two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. And strictly focusing on one and not the other is problematic. Because they're compatible and complementary. They, at least currently, feed into each other and are closely related. Although I will point out that I do disagree strongly with the idea that the manosphere, or any component of it, red pill, PUA, MGTOW, MRAs, this is not the flip side of feminism. It's not just like the inverse or inside out of it. They're very, very different. So when I say that they are two sides of the same coin, I mean it more in how they interact, not that it's just like, well, feminism's for women and the manosphere is for men. No. But they do have interaction. I also believe that focusing strictly on one, either one, is a confrontation avoidance strategy, and it's also context dropping. They both exist right now in the West at the same time, focusing on positive self-improvement for men, being pro-masculine, pro-masculinity, in a genuine conventional traditional sense, and fighting feminism and combating it, as the manosphere does in various mechanisms through each branch, the four I mentioned, that I'm highly intimate with at this point, or familiar with. MGTOW, Red Pill, PUA, and MRAs, the men's rights activists. So I don't believe it's, in many different ways, it's confrontation avoidance, focusing on one or the other. It's not good. It's either avoiding confrontation with feminism, or if you're focused fully on just beating the hell out of feminism, you're avoiding confrontation with yourself and improving yourself and your own life and focusing on your own issues and what you want to improve upon. I believe right now that feminism has so far infiltrated the West that we're basically fish in water. Feminism is all around you all the time. It's even in this room, although dramatically less so, which is fantastic. It's like Galt's Gulch up in here with feminism, or as in opposition to it. So it's all around us all the time, just like fish in water. It's so far penetrated society that we don't even recognize that anymore, even if you're opposed to it, openly and consciously and directly. That's how I was from about late 2009, maybe early 2010, when I first started looking into feminism and being increasingly opposed to it, knowingly. Didn't like it, thought it was complete bullshit. Every element of it I could identify. However, when I finally read Repeal and the work of Rollo Tomassi, I realized how much feminism had affected me in ways I didn't realize. Even making fun of it, ridiculing it, thinking it's complete nonsense, particularly the third and fourth wave that we're more familiar with, or at least I am in my generation, I'm 29. And I believe many men today are still stuck in that. In this room, a lot less. But even guys outside of here that say on your social media feeds you see making fun of feminism, they're still in that realm. They haven't moved to the point where they really understand and get a high altitude view on how far feminism has infiltrated your life and the world you live in the West. It's basically about 100% infected everything we have and everything you interact with on a daily basis. Every city government, every state government, every ABC department or agency of the federal government in the United States, every university, every church, every business, every branch of the military, every book, every movie, every TV show, every video game you play, every home, every family, every bedroom, every mind. It's all around you all the fucking time, and you don't even realize it. By the way, I curse a lot. I'm trying to minimize that. We'll see. I get close to Christian McQueen sometimes, so we'll see how this works out. I mentioned that feminism is not just a hate movement against men. That's specifically what I'm getting at when I say that at the beginning of this talk. It's also a form of supremacism, specifically for women. And this has been, I believe, since day one of modern feminism, since the first wave. About 100 years it's been around. It's never been about equality, which is what they'll tell you. Actually, when I first put out the ideas of this talk to a new friend of mine I met about a year ago, someone who is young, highly intelligent, I go out with him all the time to meet women, and he's someone who's highly familiar with the manosphere, but particularly the POA community. Sharp young guy. He had an immediate knee-jerk reaction that influenced his talk when I discussed criticizing feminism and what we'll get into more throughout this talk. His initial reaction was rapid, too, and articulate. So you're opposed to women's rights and you want to destroy them. And that is not what I was talking about in the slightest. But the minute I criticized feminism, boom, immediately. And this is a sharp young guy that is a good thinker. He thinks outside the box, does not believe everything he's told, and is willing to go against the grain in a lot of areas of his life. So it was interesting that immediately when I criticized feminism, he jumped to women's rights, which I think has never been the case. If it was about equal rights, why would they call it feminism? They would have called it equalism or something along those lines that made more sense. I don't believe it's ever been about that. And in particular today, if you ask a feminist in the West, in the United States, in Canada, and so on, what rights do I have as a man that you don't as a woman? They just flip their shit. They get, depending on the women, but they'll get angry because you're pointing out the hypocrisy of this. They've had equal rights for a long time, at least in the United States and elsewhere in the West. So if it's not about, why is this young man, in America today, in Florida, talking about women's rights with feminism if they've had equal rights for a long, long time? I don't believe it's ever been about that. What they do over time is goalpost shift, which is a logical fallacy, an informal one, I believe. So each wave that goes by, they move the goalpost. They move the markers of what's going on. And yet they still claim it's about equal rights. But what rights? It's all nonsense and it's a smokescreen, in my judgment. The waves in particular, I believe, have been a march of supremacism over time, beginning with the first wave. It was better concealed then and less explicit. But as time has gone on, it's now spiraled out of control into third and fourth wave feminism, which is so toxic that the Overton window, the window of discourse, is actually moving in our favor, surprisingly. Hillary Clinton was the first major party, quote unquote, female candidate in US history for president, and she nearly became president of the United States. Just earlier this year, I believe, she went on camera for some sort of production studio and proudly declared the future is female. And then women, other feminists joined in, the future is still female. This is a person who nearly became president of the United States, 365, 70 million people, half woman, half male. Where do men fit into this? Where's the equality in the future is female? There is none. What is the future is female? What does that have to do with equal rights? None. It has nothing to do with it. It's strictly about women and supremacism. Shifting gears a little bit, the Red Pill talks somewhat, significantly so, about things like open cuckoldry and open hypergamy, so open and very explicit female sexual strategy. I believe this not only has basis in female sexual strategy and biology becoming more explicit over time, but it's also a function of open hatred against men. Hatred against men and masculinity in particular, and then men are the source of it, is becoming normalized. Every year, every decade, more and more and more. This is just one example, and our speakers tweet about this all the time on Twitter. You've heard about examples like this at the event. Rollo gave a good one with I believe he was a father in Barnes & Noble. He was shopping for a book for his child in the children's section, and he was basically kicked out of the store. Which is pretty insane if you think about it. If you're a father and you're buying a book for a young child, you're engaging in normal retail shopping activity. This guy was seen as basically as a pedophile. Being a father, buying a book. That happened recently, within months, a couple years, not that long ago. Can you imagine a woman being kicked out of a Barnes & Noble store for buying a book? Like, what the fuck has happened that's normal and acceptable? What about in France, a major Western country? Their new president, Emmanuel Macron, I believe is his name, I believe is called now for within 1 year to criminalize, not like some slap on the wrist, criminalize asking a woman for her phone number. And some whistling shit too. So, which I guess the French are known for, great. This is a major Western nation, and they want to criminalize, and there's some functions of this with women controlling male sexual strategy and so on, which is interesting, but not my focus here. My focus is how the fuck is this becoming normal? That this is going to happen in France. And it already happened, to my knowledge, in a few other European countries, I believe Portugal and Belgium. If this can happen in France, it can happen in the UK. And they have things similar to this already that are not quite as explicit, but close. If this can happen in France and the UK, it can happen in Canada. If it can happen in Canada, it can happen in the US. This is insane. Approaching a stranger and asking for a phone number is a normal human activity. You don't do it every day, but there's nothing weird about it. Can you imagine, for example, a woman being arrested in the United States or anywhere else in the West for asking a man for his phone number? This would be the pinnacle of absurdity. Why isn't it that way for men? Because feminism. It's a hate movement and supremacist movement. And open hatred is becoming normalized. When I found the Red Pill, it's by the way, it's the original, the Red Pill movement, as we're talking about in the manosphere, is the original post-Matrix movie trilogy internet use of the term. It's not the ultra disambiguated or distributed use that's going on today. So on the internet, people are now saying anything's a red pill. My philosophy is a red pill. This religion's a red pill. This political ideology is a red pill. No, the red pill we're talking about was used by this movement since about 2002. So when I'm talking about the red pill, I'm talking about that component, that branch of the manosphere specifically. And its meaning is that it's the truth about men, women, and how we interact sexually and otherwise. And it comes from the Matrix trilogy, pretty obvious at this point. But one of the things I realized in thinking about this presentation and about how feminism affects men and what it is, and so the culture we live in, is feminism, I think a lot of men view it as, at least with a quick thinking, they think of it and they view it as like the Matrix itself from this movie trilogy. I don't believe that's accurate. The more I thought about it, the more I realized or came to believe that As a character, Agent Smith from that movie trilogy is an analogy for feminism. It's not the Matrix itself. So this is the face of feminism. Well, this is from Milo. He made this popular, Feminism is Cancer. But in this movie trilogy, Agent Smith is similar to that as well. He's like a virus. He's spreading out of control. The Matrix and the machines no longer control him. Well outside of their control, it's running wild. They can't stop it. Similarly, women today no longer have any kind of directive, if they ever did, over feminism. It's completely out of control. The honey badgers, like Christina Hoff Sommers, Dr. Christina Hoff Sommers, is a good example of this. She's a feminist, but not a feminist, and she produces some good work. She is not just routinely ignored, she's universally ignored by feminists. They don't give the slightest of fucks about what she says. We do, we're interested in it. They don't. They could care less. So there's little to no desire or ability to self-police at this point, or reform it, which is what Christina Hoff Sommers is trying to do, and has been trying for a long time. There's been like no progress on that. Every year, every decade, feminism gets worse, every wave. And like cancer, I believe feminism is a disease of civilization, which, according to this definition, a disease associated with the way a person or group of people lives. We talk about that a lot at this conference, these diseases. Not this one in particular, but in general out of the 14, this being the 14th. We talk about the paleo diet, we talk about how how men and women, humans over time have evolved. And when we stray from our evolutionary past, significantly it causes problems. Cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all these different things that are not that hard to prevent if you respect your own nature and your own biology and how it's evolved over a couple 100,000 years, so on. Going back to the infection rate being 100%, I believe this is extremely dangerous. Much more so than most men appreciate, including men who really don't like feminism. You hate it, you understand it's complete nonsense to some degree, whether that's high or low or anywhere in between. Long term, and even short term in some ways, it represents extreme danger to the West, the United States, and a free and rational society in our future. I want to take a step back real quick as well. When I say that feminism is an enemy from within, it's something that I don't believe we've faced before, if not, or if so, in a long, long time. Radical Islam, for example, gets a lot of criticism for being a threat to the West. They don't like us, they're like in jihad. Wherever you think about this, by the way, it's not particularly relevant right now. It's just the general consensus or general discussion of it right now. Radical Islam doesn't hold a candle to the infection rate of feminism. Its influence on the West is minuscule in comparison. Feminism affects everything. It's an enemy from within the United States and within the West, not external. It's all around you, all the time, in your own head, in your own home, in your own family, all around you. And I think this is important to keep in mind when we think about the world around us, outside of the United States and outside of the West. This is a major enemy from within that hates men, supports female supremacism, and is doing catastrophic damage to the West on every level and to every person. Shifting gears, I think the internet, as unbelievably fantastic as it is, and as much positive change as it's affected and improved our lives in all these different ways, it has a strange effect to make people think small, in my opinion. So I've seen in the Red Pill, for example, there's been discussion of creating like a smartphone app, an iPhone app, Android app. I forget the exact mechanics of it, but just thinking about it on my phone, on my iPhone, this is, and obviously it has interconnectedness between thousands, potentially millions of men, but it's so small. Like, what happened to thinking big? We're thinking like literally on your phone now at this point. An app is more than this in code, of course, but it's small as compared to something like a physical live event like you guys here in Orlando, Florida. This is huge. It's, well, relatively speaking, 100 and something people. But compared to an iPhone app like this, where you're like this, getting text neck. This is crazy, crazy awesome and crazy big. Over 100 people, 4 days long, 5 days long, 6 days long, depending on if you're a speaker or not. This is a major event. It's the world's first major gathering of Red Pill speakers and PUA speakers from that element of the manosphere at the same time, and other speakers from outside of that are fundamentally pro-man and pro-masculinity in a conventional, traditional sense. This is a big deal. You guys are feeling that. You've been feeling that for days. Again, though, with thinking small, people think now facing a severe or extremely dangerous enemy like feminism, we're talking about mobile apps to improve our lives or combat this. We're hyper-connected. The internet, I think, also makes us think, well, people get ADD anyway from a lot of things, but we think that thinking long-term is in weeks and months and maybe years at best, and that's probably being generous. Another one, too, that really, I think you guys will find this amusing, especially if any of you have online businesses. Change the world on the internet has become a meaningless phrase. It's like everyone with a PayPal account is changing the world, which is absurd. Not to downplay small businesses, which are extremely fucking important, but to change the world, you're talking about hundreds of millions, if not 7-something billion people, a lot of people, if you mean that literally or in any major sense. So I think this has become a meaningless statement, and the internet, the longer it goes on, the more meaningless this becomes, because everyone's doing it. As opposed to thinking big. Thinking big to me, when I think of it anyway, at minimum, I'm thinking about civilizations, organizations, political unions, like the United States of America, social movements. I'm thinking in decades, thinking in generations. I'm thinking the next century. One of my heroes is Dr. Ron Paul, former congressman from Texas, 3-time presidential candidate. I'll never forget hearing him say, when he was on some major news network, MSNBC or Fox News or something, they were asking about his campaign in 2012. And he had to stop them and say, I'm not just running a presidential campaign, I'm trying to change the course of history. He was dead serious. That's who he is. This is not new to him. But of course, the news commentators just like, it's going over their head. This guy's serious. He's not kidding. And he has a significant understanding of the dangers facing the West and facing the United States. But this statement to me is thinking big, truly and legitimately, as opposed to something like change the world, which is being abused and its value is just being inflated out of control to the point that it's meaningless. But change the course of history or change the course of a generation, this is thinking multiple decades. This is serious thinking. I want to shift gears a little bit again, but continuing on the same thought thread. I want to talk about the waves of feminism. Let's get specific. Before I get into the first wave, I want to have Nicholas Cloud comment on the first wave. His understanding of it, he's an attendee and a friend, and the man who introduced me to the Red Pill. Did a fantastic job of it, too. He's going to talk to you about that because he is so articulate on this issue, it's unreal. He won't be on camera, but you're going to hear him now in the back. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing about the first wave of feminism that I've always been interested in is the concept of women's suffrage, specifically how the feminist narrative uses that as a vehicle to say the lack of voting agency that women had in the 1900s was a direct case of male oppression. So I started researching this using some source documents, and I've come to the conclusion that that is an absolutely false narrative. And I just want to share a few key points that I have discovered in my research that I think you'll all find interesting. First of all, in the 1900s, the way people looked at government in the United States and England is very different than we look at it today. Government was very limited. It didn't have the reach that our government has now. And the way voting worked was that voting was seen as an administrative function, not a right. It was an apparatus created by the state. It was not an inherent right given to anyone specifically. It was designed to be exercised in the same vein as jury duty. Chief Justice Marshall, who is the 4th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, said that voting, or the granting of the franchise, has always been regarded in the practice of nations as a matter of expediency and not as an inherent right. So the idea that we have today, if someone said, is voting a right, you'd say, yeah, absolutely. They didn't think that back then. It was not a right. So then the question is, well, if it's not a right, then why were only men able to exercise voting to control the operations of government? And there are some reasons for that. First, many of the operations of government required the physical strength and stamina that only men can bring to the table. For example, putting out fires, making arrests. These were seen as civilian duties. There were not professional fire departments and police departments up until like the late 1800s. These were civilian duties. Quelling riots, being part of the militia, bearing arms during war. These were all things that men had to bring to the table. And since they were taking on the risks, it was logical that they should be the ones to direct policy that directly impacted society and the mitigation of these risks. Second, only solvent, self-sufficient citizens could pay taxes. In the 1900s, women could work, they could own property, they paid taxes if they were single and they could own their own businesses. Everything that a man could do, they could do. Once they got married, they were seen as a family unit, they became the head of the household, and the man took financial responsibility for everything in the house. So only the man was paying taxes. The vast majority of women got married. Therefore, the vast majority of income flowing to the state was provided by men. So since men were providing the vast majority of the financial support for state operations, it made sense that men would have the vast majority of voice when it came to the direction of that money in society. Third reason, laws protected women at the expense of men or granted them specific privileges that men did not have. Men financially, they were obligated to support their wives as long as they were married. Their wives had no such obligation. They didn't need to bring any money to the family at all. Poor husbands, well, all husbands, but specifically poor husbands, were liable for the debts of their wives, but wives were not liable for any of the debts that their husbands incurred. So if your wife went out, had a gambling problem, you were automatically liable for her debts. Husbands were always required to pay alimony. Wives were not required to pay alimony at all during this time. Even if the wife initiated a divorce for some reason, she was not required to pay alimony. Women were exempt from the repercussions of initiating violence, something called the inalienable right to strike without being struck. So she could strike anyone she wanted, fit her age, whatever, in public. Could not be held criminally liable for that. A man could. And they were obviously exempted from the physical duties of the state, going to war, putting out fires, these types of things. At this time, egalitarianism was explicitly rejected. People understood that as an evolutionary step, the differentiation of the sexes brought different things to the table. Men were seen as the guardians of the state, of the people in general. Women were seen as the guardians of the home. They viewed this as a natural evolutionary leap. So then what was the thrust here? Why did the women's suffrage movement start? What was their ultimate goal? And this is a quote that comes directly from an anti-suffrage pamphlet at the time during the early 1900s, where they interviewed a working woman who had her own business, and they asked her, and she said, if I could vote, I'd sell my vote to the person who would give me the most money for it. And that really wraps up the whole thrust of suffrage during that time, was the transfer of wealth. And it's no coincidence that at this time, the purpose of government started to shift from being a very limited source of protections of rights to the massive wealth redistribution engine that we see today. This was the seed of it. So this is what I found in my research. It's still an ongoing project, but I thought it was very apropos, and Anthony graciously has allowed me to share it.
Thank you very much, Nick. His articulation of that is like really, really good. And I'm really, really happy he's able to do that for us. Thank you, Nick, very much. I want to make clear before continuing, and we're going to get into some of the issues he just discussed. I'm not advocating, like I know Roosh from the Manosphere has advocated like modifying the Constitution, which is a huge process. I'm not in favor of that. I don't even think that's a good idea, necessarily. It's probably a bad idea. It doesn't need to be done, though, I think is the bigger point. Nor do I think that would be a good direction. What I'm saying, and this is a theme we'll see throughout this talk, is that I believe everything feminism has been done in the worst way possible. I think the thrust of what Nick was saying is that women getting the vote was done in the worst way possible, in the sense that it was done with complete disregard for biological differences and how that manifests in rights and responsibilities. And that's what he was talking about, I think, at its root. He's not the only one in the world talking about this, obviously. And I always found, too, that the first wave of feminism being criticized like this is highly unusual at this point as well. Usually, again, we see it only, the Overton window is only the third and fourth wave of criticism. But the first is hugely problematic as well. There's a YouTube channel that's pretty big called Black Pigeon Speaks that has also discussed this issue. I do not necessarily agree with everything in this video. Why women destroy nations / civilizations, and it goes on. And he also actually makes it very clear, inadvertently and unintentionally. He's not saying women are like vicious, like, let's just destroy everything. When this video was taken down, as you see on the right, by YouTube recently, it had about 1.3 million views. It wasn't taken down, it's been censored in a very clever way to dramatically hinder its ability to impact the internet. And it was obviously doing very well. It had 1.3 million views, been out, I believe, over a year at this point. This is pretty recent, maybe a month or two ago it was taken down, or put in this digital ghetto, their clever censorship of videos like this. What they actually say, by the way, YouTube, owned by Google, is that videos like this, put in this state, do not necessarily, basically that means they do not, violate their community guidelines. They do not violate the terms of service, especially when he uploaded it and published it. They don't violate anything like that. It was simply seen as maybe offensive, like it's saying, to some audiences. This is what they do with content they don't like, that they want to censor and silence. They don't call it that, it's too explicit, it would be too obvious. So they have to manipulate it like this to wreck a message like this, where he's just speaking, exercising his right to speak freely about a complex issue that is like a sacred cow at this point, women voting. So look this up when you have a chance. You can still find it on YouTube by going to Google. You can't find it on YouTube anymore. It's no longer in the search results. You can't find it on his channel. The view count's gone. You can't even click through to his channel from it. That's how they basically removed everything, so it's a static video. It really sucks. There are other pretty well-known YouTubers as well that look at these issues critically and are open-minded to at least looking at it, rather than treating it as a sacred cow, women voting, and nothing can ever be done. Nothing can ever be said about it in the negative sense. Stefan Molyneux is a good example of someone else who looks at these issues and is not afraid to confront them. The second wave, I think James Damore is an excellent example of feminism basically forcing women into the workplace in the worst way possible, with zero regard for biological differences once again. The result being that as soon as James Damore suggests that men and women are different, he gets fucking fired immediately. I think Steve Jobs in particular would be, well, with no discussion of what Apple would think of this or does think of this issue, I think Steve Jobs, though, would be particularly fucking annoyed by this, regardless of what his thoughts were on feminism and related issues. And by the way, how's this James's white male privilege working out? Not so well. Instantly fired. I guess that went out the window. So this young, polite, probably overly polite guy, very intelligent, very well thought out, very well cited, put an opinion piece out, or an article, basically, instantly fired for daring to think different about an issue of women working alongside him at Google. And now I think we're now riding the benefits of a hyper-diverse, Orwellian, ultra-PC corporate culture that punishes brilliant young men like James Damore, like Nick Cloud. He's also in the tech industry. He's had a lot of commentary on this as well. So Think Different by Steve Jobs, right? Not so much at Google. You're just instantly fired the second you think anything unapproved. Getting into the third and fourth wave, the third and fourth waves, the fourth wave current, are such a clusterfuck. I'm not even sure I need to address it, but I thought I would do a little something at least. Again, the Overton window is shifting in the right direction because it's so feminism is so out of control. Let's pause actually too. The idea that feminism, as we've discussed now, the first and second wave, was this pristine, angelic origin, and then it kind of spiraled out of control just by accident, is bullshit. It's been toxic since the start. It's never had a real, genuine regard for differences between men and women and how we're going to interact and how we have interacted for hundreds of thousands of years. So the third and fourth wave, in my opinion, in my judgment, are predictable. This is an exponentially, every wave gets more fucked up. So this isn't a surprise. It should not have been a surprise anyway, and probably would not be to men from around the first time, or the first wave. So on the far left, we have women wearing vagina hats, marching in our republic's capital. Great, I'm sure your grandmothers are really proud. The future is still female. You tried to force in my opinion, very horrible female candidate into the office of the president. You lost. But the future's still female. Fuck males, fuck men, right? Who cares? Collectivism. I believe the use of women's rights equal humans' rights, or human rights. Well, you'll never hear a feminist say that men's rights equal human rights, right? No. just women's rights. I think in particular human rights, you notice it doesn't say women's rights equal individual rights. It's human rights. In my opinion, with feminism and elsewhere, human rights is a smokescreen to inject collectivism into the discussion. They never say individual rights. It's human. It's more, it's a slightly broader term, and it conceals hidden intentions. Then we have a father on the far right, being a fantastic father by wearing a bra with a sign on him that says, "Go ahead, grab my pussy." This is his son that he's, so this father, I don't want to beat up on him too hard, but this guy is so brainwashed as a male feminist, he's happy to take his son, march him around wearing a pink bra. I'm surprised he doesn't have a pussy hat on, like literally a vagina hat. Like, ugh. I can't wait for the fifth wave. It's going to be fucking great. I want to make a point, though, that we're really digging into feminism, right? That's specific. I don't believe feminists matter. All these women marching, we need to observe it, be aware of it, and understand it. Individual feminists don't matter. Not even Hillary Clinton. Not that she's a particularly great poster child for feminism, not even by their standards. But she is a significant, a major feminist figure, right? Hillary Clinton's 70 years old. She'll be of natural causes, she'll be dead in 10, 15, 20 years. She doesn't matter. She's a first-place loser, literally. She lost. She's gone, she'll be dead soon. Her daughter doesn't really matter. What matters is ideas, which continue over years, decades, and generations. The individuals we need to be aware of, male and female, both. But they're not really the problem. The problem is the ideas. If they didn't have the ideas and the institutions that are infected by these ideas, they wouldn't have any ability to exert political and social force of their very shitty, toxic ideas. So feminists don't matter. We all die, us too. We're all going to be dead. Maybe not Jolly. Is Jolly still there? Oh yeah, maybe he'll just keep living. Him and Dave Asprey. We all die. So it's not, I'm not here to criticize feminists very much. I'm here to criticize ideas. That's what matters. What I'm advocating for at this point is a full repeal and replacement of feminism. 100%. That doesn't mean modifying the Constitution. That doesn't mean removing women's ability to vote. I'm not here to say that, not for that. I am talking, though, about 100% destruction of the feminist establishment and replacing it with something else, something positive. I wonder what that could be. Positive masculinity. That was a strange cough, huh? Specifically, the title of this talk is "The Future is Masculine." I chose that. Obviously, this is interacting with "The future is female" or "still female" when you really double down on the fucked up bullshit. The future is masculine because I believe that when I found Rolla's blog, when I first found it in 2015, before my proper introduction through Nick Cloud, I'll never forget looking at it and the title of it standing out to me in a number of ways. The fucking balls on this guy to make a blog of this title, whether he really knew his shit or was this an expert keyboard jockey. I remember just looking at it thinking, this guy either is balls of steel or is just full of shit. But it's either way, it's an epic title. So a masculine future for the West, and maybe for the world ultimately, hopefully, it's a rational future. It's a society based on rationality, just like his blog. This guy has the audacity to make a blog about being a male human being for 3.5 billion of us, how to be rational. It's fucking awesome. It's a positive future. Look at the guy's focus. Positive masculinity. He had the goal. He went through a whole, I'm sure, thought process like he's talked about with picking that, but he ultimately picked it. It's a positive future, and I believe that. When he talks about conventional masculinity along with the other speakers and traditional masculinity, he means it. And he's correct, in my judgment. The future is masculine is also an inclusive future. When Hillary Clinton or anyone else, the future is female or the future is still female, it's exclusive to women, to females. They don't give a shit about male. They're not even in the sentence or in the statement. A masculine future is inclusive. It doesn't exclude women. Women, by the way, love masculinity, depending how fucked up they are. But almost all of them do. They really, really enjoy it, just like you enjoy experiencing it and expressing it. Women are very much along for this ride. I love women. I'm pretty sure everyone here does as well. I've built literally my entire adult life a business around this concept, whether or not I realized it. The future is masculine as a title of this talk, and as a thrust for the talk intellectually, is complementary, or compatible. Complementary from Rollo, compatible from Socrates, you guys heard of this event. That's what that means. The future is female is not complementary. It's supremacism. It's hidden female supremacism based on a hatred of men and an imagined, vicious, toxic revenge. It's fucked up and insane. The future is masculine is also, I believe, the beginning of a masculine renaissance that can and will lead to the next enlightenment, which I believe we're running on the fumes of the last one. It needs to happen, and if we don't, there are serious consequences. Let's shift gears. Here's a great set of characters. We even got Andrew the Private Man, a former speaker at this event, who this event specifically is dedicated to. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, it doesn't actually matter for this specific component. It doesn't matter. We love him, love him, but hate his policies, whatever. It doesn't matter. These gentlemen, and a handful of others, were significantly responsible for him becoming president of the United States right now. Whether you like it or not, whether you hate these guys or not, I actually love Alex Jones. Not that I agree with much of what he says, but he makes the internet so much fun. That's just so awesome. Milo, I mean, holy shit, Milo, yeah. That's actually me with Milo at my old college, UCF in Orlando, about a year ago. Awesome guy. Whatever you think of these guys, though, whatever you think of Donald Trump, as new media and a handful of others, these guys literally put that guy and helped in a massive and a significant way into the office of the presidency in the United States, which obviously, if you haven't heard the news lately, was not supposed to happen. He had a 2% chance of winning. The country still just can't even cope with it, right? It's causing a lot of issues I hear on the news. So these guys, whatever you think of them, producing videos, audio, blogs, books, actually helped accomplish that in a real and significant way. Without them, it might not have happened. Media, as opposed to legacy media or old media, mainstream media as we call it now, or as it's becoming called. My company, unintentionally, has also, in a pretty big way, fallen into this new media category as a production company and an event and in podcasts and interviews. We're a new media company. And my company is based on more. I talked to you guys about, on Thursday, the opening of this event, my YouTube blitz in 2013, when I had the crazy-ass idea, already having 500 videos on YouTube. Let me just put out a video every day, by hand. I'll get it done myself. Just bombarding YouTube, and therefore the internet, with videos. More and more and more and more. I always imagine it as beating people over the head like a soft mallet. More videos, more videos, more videos, more videos. I love doing it. And I think video in particular is immensely powerful. It's a compression of ideas, of content, of performance, of everything into a camera, into a lens that's recorded and repeated literally millions of times over. We've had men stand on the stage, give one presentation that's racked up right now 1.9 million views. Excuse me. Even Socrates is another good example, a veteran alumni speaker. He's given a number of presentations at this event. I think 6 or 7 at this point, maybe more. Probably more. I'm losing count, so many. His videos get viewed on our channel, just on YouTube, never mind anywhere else. We have other platforms. I think north of 500 times a day. That's like 500 little Socrates bobbleheads just talking indefinitely for years, since 2011, every day, every single day. That's video. It's high quality, they're excellent presentations, they're good ideas. That doesn't mean they're perfect, which is an absurd standard. They're really good. Video is important. I also believe drowning your enemies in videos is an effective method to finish them. In quantity and quality, both are important. I don't believe random ass video blogs off your iPhone are going to accomplish that. They can help, but you need quality too. Both are extremely important. And I've worked my ass off, to the bone, to to improve the quality of this event, do as many as we can, make as many videos as we can. Each presentation, even this one, will produce one speech, will produce 8, 10, 15 videos because of the way we modify them and use them. We leverage them. We expand their power. 21 University is another platform that helps safeguard us, that Nick Cloud, by the way, is rebuilding from scratch. This guy's like fucking Neo, man. He sees the code, sees the matrix. It's incredibly important, and we've been building it since 2015 because we were concerned about censorship, which is now a huge issue on YouTube and other platforms. I was recently banned from Facebook. My crime, I could show you guys a screenshot, was saying, dishes and cleaning are for women. Of all the shit I post on Facebook and social media, I actually got banned for that. People don't even believe it until I show them. Dishes and cleaning are for women. This is funny. There's a whole lot to it. But that's how far censorship has come. You can't even post something like that without getting banned off a major website, which is fascinating, I think. There's a whole set of issues with that, but we're going to skip that for now. But 21 University represents independence for this company, financially and in terms of content and platform. YouTube is no longer safe, as we talked about. We'll actually get into this a little bit later. Our videos, as of last night, I discovered we had about 50 demonetized. That means on the road to being silenced, to being removed, like that video I showed you about women in voting. So now, I thought we might have been able to dodge it, but that was, I guess, wishful thinking. Our channel, even content that from Rollo's stuff, other speakers, Socrates, it's just getting demonetized, which hinders our ability to make money on them, which hinders our ability to make more videos, to make more events. 21 University is a significant push in the right direction. And we've been doing it since 2015, and now we're getting a major boost to it, which is super badass. I'm super excited. Shifting gears once again, in terms of positive, being pro-masculinity, what does the 21 Convention really do? You guys all come here with your specific issues and problems or goals that you want to work on, right? But how does that affect how does that interact in a coin way, two sides of the same coin, all right? In my view, how I see it is it makes you guys more powerful in every single way. Every way we focus on. And I want you guys to become as powerful as possible. You guys are the ultimate threat to the feminist establishment, making your life as good as you can, pursuing your happiness, being as healthy, fit, strong, wealthy, game-aware, red pill-aware, conventionally, genuinely masculine for yourself and for your happiness and for your future. Independent, free, and happy. Mark Sisson, actually, a health speaker at this conference in the past, talks about this a lot too, not in the same context, not bringing him into this too much. But people being fit and healthy, in terms of disease, life expectancy, how long you're expecting to live, your ability to think, there's so many speakers that they can tell you about that, health speakers, at this event, prior and future. All these things are super, super important. No one is, well, some are more important than others, probably. But they're all really, really important. They make you more powerful as a man and a human being, which is a threat. Your ability to be manipulated and controlled is diminished the more powerful you become. This is the good part, the really good part. So you guys know what 21 Studios is, almost all of you. 21 Convention is still a more popular brand, but 21 Studios is something we launched in 2015 that has functioned as an umbrella brand or a master brand for all different shows. We have the 21 Report interviews, Those are behind the scenes upstairs. You guys don't see those, but you'll see them soon on YouTube and 21 University. We have 21 University itself. Obviously, we have the 21 Convention live event. We have the Under 21 Convention live event for young men. We had one last year, as well as in 2007, 2008. We have a documentary series, podcast, a lot of different things. And 21 Studios is a simple way and an effective way to encapsulate all these different things and bring them together, to focus them, and help people recognize the different brands as part of the same thing. But since 2014, for over 3.5 years at this point, this has been a deliberate misdirection. This was never the actual primary purpose of 21 Studios. That was basically all bullshit, to put it bluntly, on purpose, for this moment. 21 Studios, its main intention and main purpose is to be a building, or actually a phased series of buildings in Central Florida to the tune of millions and tens of millions of dollars, where we can do these events safely and into the future in our own safe space, right? More specifically, not a safe space. This convention is not a safe space. It's extremely challenging. People can get upset. Usually you don't. Usually just have an awesome time. But sometimes people don't hear what they want to hear. They can get upset. The red pill in particular is very challenging to a lot of men. It is more triggering and upsetting to people than I've ever seen anything in my life. It makes religion and politics look like just minuscule bullshit in comparison. And those are serious. Those are serious fundamental issues of human life. What you believe about reason, about reality, all these different things. And I found the perfect architect or project manager for this series of buildings that we're going to build. And we're going to have him on stage right now to tell you about what he's going to do. Socrates, come on stage. Thanks, Socrates. Very, very much. Continuing on this presentation, from where I was here, now you guys saw Socrates, his vision and contribution to what's happening. Let's continue. One of the things I think that a lot more men need to realize, in the manosphere or otherwise in the West is your home. Western civilization, the United States and its allies. When I say the word home, I think most people think, men and women both, they think of your house, your apartment, maybe your city, maybe where the city you were born, maybe the city you live in, maybe your home state, particularly if you're from a state in the United States like Texas. Well, this is all accurate, either literally or more broadly, thinking about it. Ultimately, the West is your home. This is something I realized by traveling the world, building this business, this small media empire as it is right now. I haven't traveled a crazy amount, but I've seen probably 17, 18, 19 countries, which is, I think, way above average to my knowledge. So the more I travel and the more I return back home to America, to Florida, the more I realize this. It's something that gradually I basically figured out and then eventually was able to articulate it within my own mind and verbally. So the West is our home. This is where we live. This is where you were born. Whether it's in Canada, America, Australia, the United Kingdom, and so on, in Florida, Texas, New York, wherever, the West is your home. And the more you travel, the more you realize this. Through shared political ideologies, cultures, values, religions, philosophies, and so on, the West is your home. Like Socrates was talking about, good men will not stand idle, will not stand by and watch your home be destroyed, period. So I believe we have a choice right now, at the beginning of the 21st century, to do something. And that, I believe, in big part, is not just my company and what I've done in my short 29 years on Earth and 17 to 29 as an adult, but the manosphere in particular, as a result of men communicating for the first time via the internet at such a scale. That choice is that you can watch the West burn, or you can have fun destroying feminism, destroying the feminist establishment. I think it's actually fantastic fun. And I don't just mean making fun of them. That's part of really fun, trolling and shit. That's more like funny, though, than fun. The fun part is the hard work, is improving yourself, is figuring out how other men can benefit from that too, so learning from your experience and vice versa. Going out and meeting women together is a really good, simple example of that, winging each other, helping each other out. But this is fundamentally our choice, and destroying feminism, I think, is the right choice to make. I don't want to watch my home burn to the ground. That's absurd on like 15,000 different levels. It's not just absurd, it's tragic beyond words. I don't know how anyone could do that willingly. I sure as hell can't, and I hope you can as well. Because this is a choice we all have to make, or as many of us as possible, as necessary to get the job done, to destroy the feminist establishment, to repeal and replace feminism entirely. Switching gears a little bit, why Florida? Obviously I was born here, that was coincidental, but pretty awesome. I love Florida, we're going to get into that. Let's talk about Florida. We're specific. Socrates was talking about specifically Orlando in Central Florida. Florida is a first world tropical paradise. This is something I figured out freezing my ass off in parts of Europe. Parts of Europe are fantastic. I had a good time, but I don't like being cold. People come to Florida. There's about 21 million people as of right now in the state of Florida. They come from all over the world and all over America. We call you guys snowbirds. You guys roll in the winter, and you roll the fuck out in the summer, and it's hot. I love it all year long. And obviously, millions and millions and millions and millions of other people do as well. The state of Florida, with regard to the 50 independent states in the United States, is very business friendly, top to bottom. It's not the best, but it's pretty damn good. It has excellent firearm laws, which, as you mentioned with security, I think are very, very important. But beyond that, Ivan Throne spoke to you guys yesterday, speaker of this conference for the first time. He mentioned something very specific in relation to this, I believe. I'm paraphrasing, but his statement was that your ability to speak freely is only as good as your ability to enforce it. This doesn't mean initiating violence. This doesn't mean showing a gun off to threaten somebody or intimidation or anything like that, or to silence. It means defending yourself or protecting your right to speak and not be silenced in physical real life, which is really, really rare. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, or it can. So I believe firearms are incredibly important for a huge number of reasons. Never mind that the United States was founded on these firearms and treason, the principle of treason, the principle of secession, which is very interesting and not talked about enough. But Florida is fantastic with this, and this helps with security. Not all states are. Florida is. Florida, in my opinion, in my judgment, has a good political environment. That doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean we won't have any major issues. It means the probability of that happening is less. I'm also a second-generation Floridian. I was born here. Florida, in particular, is my home. I identify as a Floridian. That's personally important to me, but as the founder of this company, I think it has significance and relevance. I'm very happy to be a Floridian. It's an awesome state with a lot of shit that can kill you. Sharks, alligators, snakes, all kinds of interesting shit, which is badass in my opinion. Why Orlando specifically? Number one, as with the 10-year anniversary, it's the city of our founding. That is important. It's not absolutely necessary to build 21 studios in Orlando, but I believe we should respect the founding and it being born here. Like I mentioned in my opening address, this company to me is in some ways like a child that I've taken care of and fathered to the best of my ability over the past over 11 years at this point. I would, to defend it, kill for it. If I had to, I would die for it, but that would also defeat the purpose of running it at that point. Someone else would have to do it, which as of yet, no one's able to do that. And I don't want to die for it. I want to live for it. I want to live with it and within it, and some physically in some ways. I want to immerse myself in it, as Socrates talked to you about. Orlando is also a world city. You can look that up. This is something I figured out just a few months ago, that there's a whole sociological, not system, but concepts applied to this. So a global city or a world city. Orlando is basically a hub of finance, of tourism, and history. There's a lot going on in Orlando. There's a reason this convention keeps happening in Orlando beyond just me going to college at UCF and starting it here. We come back here, even though I've long been out of college. I didn't even live here for, I think, north of 5 years. So it has significance there, and importance and value, it being a world city. Central Florida also, with regard to Florida, this event almost didn't happen because of Hurricane Irma. Recently, that came through the state of Florida. Caused a lot of damage, a lot of problems. Central Florida, at least within the state, is obviously inland, central. It's way above sea level. It's not on the west coast or the east coast. On the coast where you can get storm surge, things that cause major problems. Hurricanes can still cause huge problems, but it's a lot better off being in the middle of the state. You definitely don't want to go to a coast with a hurricane coming. Putting a building there, not ideal. It can be done. You have Tampa, you have Miami, but Orlando is smack dab in the fucking middle, right where I want it. We also have an example to work with from Central Florida, Lake Helen specifically. This is a picture of Arthur Jones, I believe specifically at Nautilus Studios. I don't know the exact origin of the picture. But Arthur Jones is a hero of mine, along with Steve Jobs, Ayn Rand, and a number of others. He was someone that I've spoken to you about, has been spoken about this event many times over, including by Jim Flanagan specifically, who I, to my knowledge, worked with Arthur for about 40 years. He spoke to you guys on Thursday at this conference and shared some of his experiences with Arthur. Arthur, by the way, is a legendary American badass. Basically the combination of like Tony Stark, Iron Man, Indiana Jones, and like Hank Rearden from Atlas Shrugged. This guy was an incredible human being. Wasn't perfect. Again, that's an absurd standard, but this guy was badass to the bone. He died in 2007, by the way, just a few days after this first conference. He built Nautilus Studios in the 1980s, I believe. $70 million facility, television studio, for his company Nautilus, which you guys have probably seen at the gym throughout the United States. Arthur was critical and essential in building up fitness clubs as you guys see them now. All these different gyms throughout the United States, started by Arthur, or in huge part initiated by him. Nautilus Studios, which is still around, you can go check out the building. It was 170,000 square feet of space, over 35 cameras, and again, Central Florida. The fact that he has so much relevance to this convention is talked about repeatedly, I think, is also supportive of picking Orlando. And it's a good example. And we're going to actually tour it. We're planning on it. Switching gears a bit. Again, like I spoke about in my first component of this talk, the manosphere is not the flip side of feminism. I believe this is a false dichotomy or a false analogy. Incorrect. But it is a response to it. Every branch, in my judgment, of the four I've spoken to you about, MGTOW, the Red Pill, POA community or seduction community, and the men's rights activists, in a significant way, if not entirely, their origin is feminism in a greater context. It's a response to feminism. Each one has a specific focus. And I believe very firmly, we all share a common enemy, feminism. And again, that's specifically feminism, not feminists in the millions. It's the ideas and the ideology. It's a toxic shithole. At the same time, men are tribal. We're not herd thinkers. We're highly competitive, and we have low in-gender preference. I bring this up because I'm not here, A, to make publicity stunts. I don't give a shit. I care about the truth. I care about reason. I care about science. I care about ideas. I care about men and women and individuals and families and children and marriage and the future of this country and the West. So in terms of men organized, Jack Donovan speaks fantastically about this in The Way of Men towards the end of it. I don't believe we have in our future as men in the West, in this century, a large-scale social movement. We're probably not going to be putting on dick hats marching down Washington, D.C. anytime soon. It's not going to happen, and it doesn't need to. And that's not what I'm here to, seriously, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not specifically opposed to that. I just don't think it's going to happen. But we need, like we've talked about with 21 Studios, we need to destroy feminism, destroy the feminist establishment, and we need to do that as effectively and quickly as we can. And I believe organizations like 21 Studios and the 21 Convention are the key to doing that. New media, as with getting Trump in office, regardless of whether you like him or not, is a really good, recent, intense example of that. That's serious change, at least in the short term, if not in the long term. We'll see. At the same time, the manosphere does share this enemy. It's definitely not united. And I don't think that's going to happen. But if anyone could do it, it's probably me. I've brought together speakers from all over the world 14 times now, from completely fucking different categories of human life. We've had personal trainers speak next to medical doctors, okay. Speak right next to a fucking dating coach. Fine, dating coaches are great. We have some of this event. But to have medical doctors with 20 years of experience actively practicing medicine and PhDs and all these different speakers speak on the same stage literally within minutes of each other sometimes is unreal. Doing that, by the way, is extremely fucking hard, at least initially. It's gotten easier over time as the company's grown, and this has been repeated time and time again. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Other people that try that end up getting truly crazy assholes like quacks and stuff. These are serious speakers that take their reputation seriously on both sides, from the dating coaches to the red pill, to medical doctors, to exercise physiologists, and on down the line. So if anyone could do it, I think I could. Whether or not it'll be necessary, to be honest, I don't know. But if it becomes necessary or tremendously beneficial, I'll take a look at it. We'll see. I want to briefly get into common rebuttals that will be thrown at this talk. Number one, they're going to say, oh, you hate women. I think this is like just the instant knee-jerk. It's the easiest pot shot. Number one, you hate women is not an argument. If you say it, I think you're a fucking loser. You clearly, I think, at that point have ceded defeat, at least if you don't continue with anything, which people who say this really don't. They just like throw it at you and expect you to shut up. It's not true. I love women. I love my sisters. I love my mother, my cousins, second cousins, the women in my life. They come and go. We'll see how that turns out. I really do, though. Like, it's not even, I don't even feel the need, I'm just going to shut up about it. I don't give a shit if people say it. It's not true. If they think that, again, I think they're just trying to derail their argument immediately with as much toxic shit as they can throw at you, because they have nothing else to say. They're losers. Another one will be feminism did this and that, and it's amazing, and it's this angelic little movement. It's gone a little bit, sideways, but it's so great, and we can fix it. No, you can't. It's fucked. It's been fucked since day one. Everything it did, to the extent any of it's useful, let's assume some of it is. To the extent it did that, it did it in the worst way possible every step of the way. James Damore is just a recent, clear example of that. Young guy, focused on the truth, working at a major company related to this company. He got fired immediately just for having an opinion that was not approved, for thinking, just for fucking thinking, and then having the audacity to type it up. So that argument with feminism, it's amazing, you need to defend it, it's all bullshit. Continuing, they're going to say next, this is a war on women, which is already a prepackaged knee-jerk response to throw out stuff like anything like this, even remotely like this. What they're doing is they're exchanging feminism with women. They're trying to make you believe that's the exact same thing. It's not. There's a lot of male feminists, which really sucks. But a lot of men get brainwashed into it or legitimately believe it. Or they have, actually a lot of other sexual strategy stuff that Rollo and others talk about, where they believe identifying with women will get them laid, etc., etc. Feminism, however, is not women. This is a lie, and they're manipulating you on purpose, I believe, to manipulate your ability or your desire to protect women. This is a bold-faced fucking lie, and they know it. They want you to shut the fuck up, do what you're told, be controlled. No. It's insidious. It's deeply ironic, though, that feminists will say this kind of content and these ideas are a war on women. Feminism is a war machine, a cultural war machine that hates men and is a fucking supremacist movement right in the open in the West. Disgusting, deplorable, to borrow a word from them, 100%. And it's a war on masculinity. This is something that you need to remember. It's a war on men as well, but I think, I can talk to some of the speakers and work some of this out. This is really advanced shit. It's really a war on masculinity. We're the source of it. So they need to destroy us too. They need to control us and emasculate us. But first and foremost, it's a war on masculinity. It's remove masculinity, remove the man along with it. He's the source of it. Get rid of him, you get rid of masculinity. They'll also say, of course, you're extreme. You're radicalizing men. And this is the shit they fucking do. This is a celebrity who, at the time of doing this on the left, worked for CNN, I believe, as an independent contractor. I chose specifically this image rather than the direct image that you guys probably saw she posted on Twitter or whatever when this all happened earlier this year. This is a video or a picture. Actually, it might even be a screenshot of a video. Same thing for this purpose. Of video being taken of this event. There's actually a man in it. There's probably someone on the far left of it. There's guys did the lighting, did the makeup. They set this shit up. They edited the videos, the photos. They published it all. A whole team of people, who knows, 5, 10, 20 or more, went into the production of this. And if we need to make very clear too, it's easy to blame this on politics. But I believe that's just the icing on the cake. That's a secondary mechanic of how this happened. A major female celebrity chopping off the head of a sitting US president as if she had killed him. First and foremost, it's not a political statement. They want you to believe that because they want to hide what's really going on. This is violence being normalized against men and a war on men and a war on masculinity. That is first and foremost what it is. That's the cake. The icing on the cake is that they hate Donald Trump, they hate his policies, they hate him as an individual, they hate his policies, they hate that he's president, they hate his politics, and on down the line. That's secondary. First and foremost, they hate that he's a fucking man, and he took Hillary's turn, or her turn, more specifically, her being a broader use of the term. On the right, so these are people they'll call me, this company, anyone who's associated with it, extreme and radicalizing. On the right, we have a major TV show, I think this is in like 2007, 2008, the late 2000s, women laughing about a man's dick getting chopped off, I think it was his wife. and then thrown into garbage disposals, spinning around. Ha 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 ha. Fucking funny. These are the exact same people that will call us extreme and radical. That's funny. Imagine if you had a wife and you chopped her tits off or a clit in the middle of the night and threw in the garbage disposal. Would they be giggling? Nope, not funny. But all of a sudden you chop a man's dick off, you fuck up the rest of his life? Ha 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 ha. Go fuck yourself. A big part of what this whole presentation is doing, and the change that I'm making in this company, and I hope in the manosphere and in the red pill and so on, feminism has been winning, unfortunately, for 100 fucking years. They've lost some battles. Hillary not winning was a big loss for them. Yeah. But it's been a defensive war. Everything is, at best, responsive, if not reactive. There's no offense. And yet they're attacking. And we're playing defense lightly, trying to tread carefully, not piss anyone off too much. Am I going to get silenced? Am I going to get censored? It's all defensive warfare. We're losing a lot of the time. They usually win the battles. They've been winning the war for a century straight. This was recently tweeted by, I first saw this from Ryan Stone, the speaker here, yesterday morning. How to stop the red pill phenomena from spreading. And then she went on to list all this bullshit about how evil it is and how to stop it. They're actively trying to shut this component of the manosphere down. This isn't the first time this has happened. It's not the last. I think he specifically cited it. This is a threat. He's right. They want to shut this shit down, regardless of its merits, regardless of the science, regardless of the facts, regardless of how I think the vast, vast majority, if not every single person in it, is serious about it. I sincerely, for example, believe feminism is a war on men and a supremacist movement. This is not a publicity stunt. This is not a joke. I'm not exaggerating. It's real, and it's all around us all the time. So we need to stop playing defense. And 21 Studios in this company moving in this direction, constructing studios like that, physical real-life buildings in a series. This is an offensive tactic to create more media of higher quality and bombard the fucking internet with it. Drown them in videos. And more media beyond that, not just videos. That's just what I think is the most powerful. It's what I'm best at. It's what I'm going to do. It's what I've been doing for 11 years. It's not just the red pill, though, right? The red pill is probably the most hated component of the manosphere. More so than MGTOW, more so than the PUA seduction community, more so even than the MRAs. This is an article I found that went into the whole manosphere. All four of them, plus a couple extras like Gamergate, kind of loosely related things. And then they pick out mystery to put at the top of all fucking people. I guess Rollo gets up there next time. Congrats, buddy. So it's not just the red pill. The manosphere, I think, it's a bad idea to just stand by and be like, oh, well, the red pill's fucked. They're going to get nuked by a blue-haired feminist with a delete button someday. Probably soon. They hate every single component of the manosphere is despised. A little bit different degrees, a little bit different reasons. It's all just seen as toxic shit by truly a bunch of female feminists and male feminists that are truly the toxic shit. A cesspool of it that's just been building into a snowball of shit for 100 years. I want to also make clear, again, with the not a publicity stunt, don't give a shit about that. I care about what we're talking about. I care about the issues. I care about the long-term viability and health of the West. This is the 10-year anniversary of this company. I've been doing it, running the company technically for over 11 years, 10 years of the event. What we're talking about is, like I mentioned, thinking big in decades and generations. This is a 30-plus year war. Feminism took this long to get this toxic and this shitty. Had a horrible origin and has now exponentially gotten worse over time. Every wave, every decade, every year, every law that changes, and everything related to those issues. To fix this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a hell of a lot more than Donald Trump being president, or anything even remotely like that, which is a big change in this country, a big impact, whether you like him or not. So we're talking generations. And specifically, I'm working to build a future to leave to my grandchildren where no one anywhere will have first-hand knowledge of feminism. It belongs in the history books as one of the worst social experiments in human history, in my sincere, genuine, deep opinion. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm young, full of piss and vinegar. I have a long life ahead of me if I don't get shot or run over by a bus. And I have a lot of fucking time on my hands. Play videos and host events. I fucking love it. This is the funnest shit of my life. This isn't exactly a rebuttal, but they're going to want to classify, in my opinion, so I'm suspecting this is going to happen. They're going to say, oh, Anthony is anti-feminism. This isn't totally inaccurate, but they're going to say, oh, Anthony's anti-feminism. He's got more in that direction. 21 Studios is that. The Convents is that. The speakers are that, if they go along with this. Every speaker, by the way, represents themselves only, unless and until they endorse what we're doing in a specific nature. But if you think this company is anti-feminism and that's it, you're missing the fucking point. My goal is to destroy the feminist establishment, to destroy feminism completely. I'm not here to just over the next 30 years criticize it, challenge it, make fun of it, produce educational content for men to become more powerful and improve their lives. I'm here to fucking destroy it. I really want a future for my grandkids or their kids. I don't have any kids yet, by the way, but I'm thinking ahead with this shit, where no one has any first-hand knowledge of it. It's fucking gone. All the toxic bullshit is in the past. So it's an unapologetic destruction of the feminist establishment, a full repeal and replace. I'm not fucking kidding. Neither is Sock, by the way. He's a badass motherfucker. One of the things I think also will get thrown at me, and I've heard this before, about these issues, is this is impossible. Feminism is too big. It's infiltrated every arena of human life in the West. Like I mentioned, that whole fucking list. Every branch of the military, every government, every school, every church. I'm speaking to you, by the way, as an objectivist and an atheist. I find shared values with certain religions and people affiliated with those religions. But I know even more than the shared values, we share a common enemy. Feminism hates religions. They hate schools. They want to indoctrinate and spread their shitty propaganda to all of it. And they've done a really good job of that. So when people tell me it's impossible, I see that as a personal statement from them and nothing more. I think it's solipsistic. Basically, they're saying it's impossible for me and that I don't know how to do it. But if it's impossible for you, that doesn't actually mean it's impossible. The chance that you took an objective, rational, high-altitude view of feminism over the past 100 years and then came to this conclusion and you're so confident and it's impossible and we're just all fucked, enjoy the fucking, sit poolside, chill out, hey, at least you're getting out of the way. I don't believe it's impossible. Bullshit. Will it become impossible? Probably. We're probably, my generation, I'm 29, I'm a millennial, we're probably with the last chance to stop this. If not, we're fucked. Will we go into a dark age or something? Maybe. My opinion is no. The world has too much technology and too many weapons of destruction for that to really happen. I think things would just collapse and then some really bad shit would happen. So it's not impossible. This is a hopelessness that is bullshit. If you have it personally, okay, that's you. You can change that if you want and you want to look into it, and you should. But I don't believe it's impossible, not for 1 second. People have told me shit's impossible my whole life, since I was 17 years old. It's always bullshit. You can do almost anything you can fucking think of that makes sense with the physical laws and reality. Destroying feminism is very far from impossible. The creation of the United States was, in my opinion and my judgment, a much more significant and more difficult struggle. And it happened. We're fucking living in it. We're sitting in it. Well, I'm standing in it. You guys are sitting in it right now. They'll also say that too much money. How's it going to happen? This is millions of dollars. I don't have millions of dollars. Not even close, but I will. So I'll find her to make it. All I have to do is convince people to give it to me. It's not that hard. It happens. I'm saying it's funny, but I'm serious. It happens all the time. People become billionaires all the time. It's not really easy. It's really fucking hard probably. But I can do it if I need to. And I believe I do, so I'm going to do it. It's that simple. Either through grants, investments, or customers. We'll get the money, we'll build this. I'm really young, I have a lot of time on my hands. And a lot of determination. Like you mentioned, I'm a bulldog. And the men I surround myself with, it's not just me. It's this film director. It's Socrates. It's these speakers. These guys are badass. As you've noticed, I have a YouTube button up here from YouTube. It's an award they sent me last year, breaking 100,000 subscribers with our channel. Just last night, I think coincidentally, perhaps not, but probably, maybe not, I discovered that about 50 of our videos were hit with, it's not censorship yet, but halfway there. And I mentioned this earlier in the earlier components presentation. About 50 of our videos were hit with demonetization, limited or completely. They no longer make money. That's a problem. That's YouTube, and this is YouTube. So these fucking assholes want to send me awards for kicking ass and helping their business and my own, and then they want to demonetize, silence, censor, and delete my shit. Well, go ahead, asshole. You're going to do it looking right at your own fucking award. Fuck you, man. I mention this specifically because the probability of this presentation being censored, so they're a little clever to basically silence it, right? Or just outright deleted, the probability of that happening is pretty fucking high. It doesn't matter how tight we stick to their community guidelines, terms of service, and various other policies. They don't give a shit. And I'm telling you, as someone who's been on YouTube for over 10 years, I understand these policies, and I talk to them all the time. I have a phone call with partner managers. I have a dedicated one now with this company. I talk to them once, twice, 3 times a year. They let me walk right into that YouTube studio in LA without an appointment, and they said, you need an appointment. They were happy to take me in the minute they found out we had a shit ton of subscribers. They're very courteous, very polite. And yet the minute we step outside their approved box of thinking, right, they want to demonetize, delete our shit, and they'll blame it on the sex stuff, right? Some of these are sex stuff, so it's probably, in part or on purpose, a computer doing it. But this is just last night. Next month it'll be different, it'll be more. It's also more too, it's not just sex stuff. One of these is a Rollo from a podcast we did. There's nothing about sex in it. It's about Rollo Tomasi, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, female supremacy. It doesn't matter what the content is, they'll find an excuse because it doesn't fit their predetermined narrative. It doesn't fit the feminist establishment that men and women are fucking identical and there's never any difference and all this collectivist nonsense that they want to shove down your throat. Before ending this presentation, I also want to share something pretty badass. This presentation is going to be an experiment to get ahead of their bullshit at YouTube and Google. For the first time ever, after being published at 21 University, it'll be published under the Creative Commons license. That means you will have the ability to download it and publish it and monetize it if you want, anywhere on any platform. You have my full permission to do so. It's easy to find one video on YouTube from one channel and delete it, and other platforms too, vid.me, Facebook, Vimeo, various other platforms. This will be the first speech we ever do that with, and from there I'll consult with the speakers and we'll look into how it works and if they want to do it. I'm not just going to do it with them without telling them ahead of time, or work with them. So I'll decentralize the platform while still growing the one on YouTube and others. This will massively, in my opinion, in my suspicion, hinder their ability to silence this content, mine and anyone else's we do it with. And you guys can take the whole video, you can take parts of it, whatever you want. Spread it as I request. You don't have my permission, I request. You download it and spread it as far as you can on every platform. I don't care if it gets 1 fucking view. 1, 1,000, 100 million, whatever, doesn't matter. As much as you can get to it, great. Just put a link back to the website, any of our websites. 21university.com, the21convention.com, anything along those lines. Greatly appreciated. And don't fuck up the video with like banners and shit. Keep it simple. Or you will piss me off. By the way, this whole idea, this whole presentation is crazy as hell. I totally realize that. I'm not like that insane. It was crazy in a good way, I think. The fact that it's crazy as hell is also why it's going to work. No one's ever tried something like this. The internet's still very young. Wherever it's at in its timeline of its life, it's still pretty young. When I was a kid, it didn't even exist. Well, at least in terms of my access to it. I think it's going to work. Time will tell. There's no guarantee. The future is masculine. I told you to remember this title at the beginning of this talk. I wasn't kidding. Come hell or high water, this is going to happen if I have anything to fucking say about it, and I think I do. I think the future being masculine will set off a reformation, a masculine renaissance, and the next enlightenment. And if we don't, well, we're fucked. I don't like that idea. I like to be happy and alive. Let's do that. So ladies, feminists, and your male brethren that have been brainwashed or totally made horrible choices to stick with that shit, your time is up. No more of your bullshit. Men that love women learn to say no. This will be the biggest no women have gotten in 100 years. Regardless of how many men join us in the manosphere and this project and this company and this event, this is a huge no. No more bullshit. I'm sick of it. You guys are sick of it. Thousands and millions of other men are sick of it. It's toxic and it's getting worse and it's extremely dangerous. When I picked this tagline for this company, or this is one of actually many different taglines we've used, I picked it on purpose. I was thinking about the 21st century, not just a few years, not even just a few decades, the whole rest of the century. The 21 Convention is the men's conference of the century. It is the #1 event in the world for men, period. I think most of you guys, if not all of you, will agree, especially if you've been to other conferences like the speakers have. They tell me different variations of this all the time. Sometimes they might be kind of telling me what I want to hear. I don't think that's very common though, but it might happen. So what? Most of the time, I think they're fucking serious. They're really serious. This is amazing. Whatever the size, whatever's going on, this camera work, this event, the professionalism of it, and the seriousness of it is insane in a really, really positive way. A final word. Crushing feminism and the feminist establishment does not magically fix everything wrong in the West. There are many different problems outside of this that have little or nothing to do with feminism. But even specific to men and women, we've always competed, and we always will, sexually, socially, and otherwise. What destroying feminism does is sets the stage for a masculine renaissance and the next enlightenment, which is exactly what we need. Like building a building, you have to clear the shit off the lot to build something. That's exactly what we need to do. It's what we have to do. And if we don't, well, we can't do this, and we're fucked. Over time, bad shit will happen. That's it. Thank you.